Joining me now, coming online, is Natasha Robinson, who is the co-head for the Office for Low Emission Vehicles. We're going to have about 15 minutes to put your questions to her. Thank you for those of you who sent in your questions. We've got a lot of those. Please do keep them coming in. We'll try and get through as many of those as we possibly can in the next 15 minutes. Natasha, thank you so much for being with us this morning.
Thank you. Hope you can hear me okay.
We can hear you perfectly. Thank you. Look, when are we going to get the date from the government? I mean, that's the first question that everyone wants to know.
That is a matter for ministers, and they are actively looking at it at the moment. I can't give you a definite answer to that, I'm afraid. But there is, I can say there's quite a lot of sense of momentum behind this and a lot of interest in it. So I wouldn't think you'll need to wait too long.
We won't need to wait too long. So it'll be before the end of the year, because he talked about the end of the year for the larger transport policy. It'll be well before then, will it?
I very much hope so.
We'd hope. Excellent. All right. Look, how much of a difference does something like the plug-in pledge today make in terms of how the government is able to forecast sales of electric vehicles in the UK?
I think it's really important. I mean, as the Secretary of State said, and as the BVRLA introduction did, a lot of vehicles come into the market through fleets, and they really provide that really vital pipeline in. And while a lot of our ambitions and things are around new sales, what really matters in terms of decarbonisation and everything else is the whole fleet decarbonising. But you need to get that pipeline going in order to feed that. So absolutely, we need fleet to sort of be leading by example and to really show what they can do in this space. That's why the plug-in pledge is so brilliant in doing that.
Now, one of the concerns that fleet operators have is there are obviously, grants, incentives, advantages to running costs of electric vehicles at the moment. But the government, on the other hand, is facing falling revenues from something like fuel duty. What assurances are you able to offer the industry that those vehicles will remain competitive to run and won't be sort of hit by other taxes once they're on the roads?
My standard answer on that is anything around taxation, that is a matter for the Chancellor, very much. But across government, I think the whole push towards net zero, decarbonising transport as a key part of that, I think we can expect it. We will continue to want to see over the coming decades the sort of relative efficiency across internal combustion engine and zero emission vehicles continuing. So that's a sort of overwhelming thing, but I can't give future guarantees about tax or anything like that because, as I said, that is a matter for the Chancellor.
That's there, exactly. Look, we've got a question coming from Chris Taylor, who says, regardless of the target date for the ban on selling new petrol and diesel, when can we realistically expect vehicles for sort of average families and average users in the second-hand market to become widely available that they'll be able to afford?
I think you're starting to see that now, not necessarily reaching the second-hand market, but the vehicles that we're seeing currently in the fleet coming through. You look at the new Nissan Leaf, can go 180 miles on a single charge. You're looking at the Kia e-Niro, a really good vehicle for a wide range of uses. You're starting to see those come through, and then the fleet market will use those for the standard sort of 2, 3, 4 years. And then that will come through to the second-hand market, and that will really help to pump prime that. I mean, the key issues on that is, you want a healthy second-hand market, and I think we are seeing a lot of demand in that market at the moment, particularly residual values staying up, which is really good for people looking to make that first purchase because it makes the cost over the next few years sort of work better in terms of that overall cost-benefit scenario for fleet managers.
Now, we've obviously seen, BEVs are just under 7% and plug-ins are just around 10% at the moment. How does that compare to what the kind of current government expectations and forecasts are for the market?
What we're looking at is the ambition for sort of 2030, 2035 in terms of where we want to get to. I would say it is tracking around where our expectations have been, if anything, slightly ahead on some of our measures, which is really good. But what we do need to see is a real ramping up over the next few years, because we are still, in a traditional adoption curve in that sort of early adopter market, and we need to be moving into the mass market and really helping move more people, give more people confidence that they can make the switch. Because I know it is there is a range of vehicles out there that will work, not quite yet for everybody, but for more and more people every year.
But still, I mean, those vehicles are still very expensive at the moment. Has the pandemic changed anything around your expectations around how fast you can push this market, given a lot of people who in January would have been quite happy to take a punt on a more expensive car for the environmental benefits will probably now be thinking twice about that?
I think that is a really key concern, and it is one we're watching closely. As I said, there's a lot of ambition across government for this, but we do know that at the end of the day, the thing that makes a difference here is the individual going into the car showroom and what they choose to buy, and the individual fleet manager. And any time where consumer confidence is and business confidence is affected, that is going to have an impact. But as I said, we're also seeing quite a lot of people making that choice to go for electric vehicles now, and more on the roads. I know I see more around where I live than I did even a few months ago, and that'll be really powerful as well. As people see their friends and neighbours having them, they get to talk to someone who has real experience of using it, and that can help. But yeah, I think it's the overall impact. It can help accelerate. There's also some counter things. I think the jury's a bit out on where exactly it'll come out.
Yeah. Now, all the forecasts around how electric vehicles are supposed to take off in this decade all indicate there'll be a big pickup in the second half of the decade, at which point electric vehicles become more competitive. Do you have a date in mind for the government, and is that how you're forecasting the market, or are you expecting it to be a kind of steady, a steady rise up to 2030?
I think we're starting to see that take off. And I do expect it to get more exponential over time. I think what will happen is we will get that, but then there'll be the trickier use cases. There'll be the more difficult things that will mean that you get that ramp up for most people. But then have we got the technology and things coming forward to make sure that for those individual people who do very long journeys and have really high energy requirements on board their vehicles, that's the sort of things where I think we still need a bit more research and development and technology coming through. And I have every faith that we will have solutions to that. But I can't say that I personally can look out and go, yes, there are solutions out there at the moment that I can see. But for the vast majority of people, absolutely, I think we expect that to see that ramping up as battery prices come down and as the supply chains start to kick into gear.
Yeah. We've had a question coming from Hamish Phillips, specifically on fleets. Belgium last week announced all new company cars had to be fully electric from 2026. Is that something the UK government could look at? Maybe two dates, an earlier one for fleets and then a later one for the private sector?
We always have a look at what other people are doing internationally. And there's some really exciting things that lots of different jurisdictions around the world are looking at. I know they look at what we do as well. So absolutely something that we can have a look at, not something that we've got that we're currently consulting on, but we always look to learn from the best of what others are doing.
Yeah. Now, we've got a lot of questions coming in, understandably, about infrastructure and about whether there needs to be minimum standards for charge point providers, whether there needs to be a greater push for having on-street charging. Look, just talk us through how is the government trying to, address these concerns at the moment?
So on the minimum standards, I think there's always a question when you've got, this is a new market emerging that is helping to enable this. There's always a question around sort of, you want to regulate at the right level at the right time, because you don't want to undermine a sort of nascent market and undermine innovation, which there's some really great stuff going on in this space. It's for on-street, at-home, smart charging. But we are looking at later this year doing a quite big consultation, looking at bringing in place some of the first regulations around charge points, and that will particularly look at things around pricing. So that standardising around sort of pence per kilowatt hour to make that more transparent for consumers. Also looking at really crucial issues around data and making that more available. And we've been doing a lot of engagement with the industry and with others sort of leading up to that consultation that we'll release in the next few months. So that's a really big bit of work that we're looking to do. On-street charging, it does feel like one of the trickier areas. For the 60+% of people who have off-street parking, it works really well now. You can put a charger in at home. For those who don't have that option, including those who who work for fleet who very often take their vehicles back home overnight. I know it could be more of a challenge. And we do have, again, some really interesting things coming in terms of lamppost charging, local charging hubs, and everything in between. And what we're looking to do is support that. So we've got £20 million available for local authorities this year to put in different on-street solutions. We've also got quite a lot of research and development money looking at supporting different areas. But yeah, a lot to do, but a lot of really exciting stuff happening in that space as well.
One of the things holding up particularly local charging and on-street charging is the fact that it's councils who are responsible for that at the moment. And within London, it's boroughs. And so I know people who've wanted to buy electric cars and they're just in the wrong borough. And so they basically can't. Look, would the government ever consider something like taking the power off the councils and actually mandating this in order to, because this is one of the really key bottlenecks the government needs to uncork? I
think we are seeing, I'm not sure we're at that stage yet. I know the Secretary of State, he wrote to all local authorities last year and asked them for their plans on electric vehicles and asked them what they were planning on doing. I think we'd look to do more in that space at the moment. And local authorities, it is very bespoke. I mean, I don't think there is one solution to what will happen. And it may even depend on the individual. I mean, if you can drive to somewhere and you're driving to your workplace and they've got charging, you'd probably use that rather than on the street charge point anyway. So, or you might drive to your local supermarket and charge there when you charge. So it is quite bespoke, and I think it is important that local authorities do have a strong role in that because they know their area and they know how it fits in with their wider transport strategy. But yes, we are very keen that local authorities come forward with proposals, and we are looking at what else we need to do in that space to help them do that, including things like more guidance and more help for them.
One of the big questions around the whole of this strategy is what to do with hybrids, and particularly something like plug-in hybrids. Does the government thought about how it can actually incentivize plug-in hybrid drivers to make sure they charge? And do you recognise that actually for a lot of people that these vehicles are going to be the natural stepping stone to let them do most driving on electric miles and then the occasional long distance journey?
Yeah, I think definitely, and I personally know people in this category, as well as we've seen the evidence through the research that we've done. Making that first step, it's quite scary, but then you get used to it, and then you make your next step into a fully electric vehicle. So absolutely, I do think they're a great stepping stone. I do think that they can really help the market and particularly help with those odd longer journeys that people do, because 95, 98% of journeys are well under 50 miles. So a lot of that can be done with existing vehicles, but people do worry about that odd long journey. So yes, absolutely, I think they're really important. How we can incentivize people to plug in. So if people do have off-street parking, they can apply for a grant for a charge point, whether it's a plug-in hybrid vehicle or a battery electric vehicle. So just making sure that they have the plugs there. I think there's quite a lot that also that sort of fleet managers and things can do to help incentivize drivers within their fleet to plug in.
Yeah, we got a specific question here from Matt Dale. Can the plug-in grant for vans be simplified, please? It'd be much easier if it was just a sort of monetary pound value to manage rather than what there currently is.
I would say absolutely, we are having a look at the whole van picture. I think there is quite a big difference in the market. It feels like the car derived vans is pretty much in the same position as cars in general. I think we do need to think about how we can continue to provide more support, particularly to larger vans. But yes, we are looking to have a review of that and see what we can do.
And a final question, because we've run out of time, from Ian Munro, and this is about the government too focused on electric power as opposed to other ones that are coming down the way. We're talking about hydrogen, fuel cells possibly in the future. And I guess there's also, as battery development goes on, you get solid state batteries, you get other things. Is there a danger, right, that the government is pushing the market too quickly? And it means that actually everyone will have to adopt a technology that isn't quite ready yet and that actually gets eclipsed by something better that comes down the road?
I think that's always a risk. I mean, you have to keep open to new things and new things coming through. But I think all of the evidence and everything that we have so far, there was a quite big announcement just last week around hydrogen, particularly focusing on hydrogen trains, but also hydrogen hubs. So absolutely, as part of the whole decarb, we are looking at hydrogen. Based on what we know at the moment, do I think it's the answer for cars and vans? No, I think it looks like battery is winning in that space, and is able to meet most of the needs with some cases around the margins, particularly where hydrogen or other technologies may well have a role. So we are moving in that space. We have supported quite a lot of hydrogen schemes in the past to quite a high degree, including sort of taxi schemes and with the police in London, and supported that. But as I said, what we're doing is largely following where it looks like the market is going at the moment. But you always have to be ready for something left field, some new development happening. And if it helps us meet net zero, I'd be very happy about that.
Brilliant. Natasha Robinson, for co-head of the Office for Low Emission Vehicles, thank you so much for being with us this morning. Thank you.
That's okay. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.